NPP 2012 running mate attacks credibility of the polls and demands annulment of a significant number of votes as he testifies in Supreme Court petition challenging the election results.
My lords, for the 1,826 polling stations, totaling 791,423 votes, we would like the court to annul the votes because they are illegal.
Tonight, we will tell you why the Supreme Court overruled a significant objection by lawyers of the respondents and its likely implications for the case.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
Top Story is brought to you by Bond Financial Services. Your success, our passion. Belaka Mineral Water, the new generation mineral water. It's also brought to you by Lifebuoy, still 100% better germ protection, and also by Blue Rose. He came fully armed with detailed evidence and stormed the witness box with a single objective: to push for the annulment of a significant number of votes cast in the 2012 elections. MPP running mate in the last elections, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, today pulled no punches at the Supreme Court in attacking the credibility of the 2012 election result. His testimony was anchored on four main allegations. Listen: overvoting, voting without verification, lack of signatures on pink sheets by presiding officers, and duplication of pink sheets serial numbers. In his view, some of these alleged electoral malpractices, especially the allegation of overvoting, could fundamentally alter the outcome of the last elections.
Our findings with respect to overvoting clearly will mean that the results announced by the second respondent would not hold. None of the two major candidates, if the votes from the polling stations where overvoting took place are annulled, would obtain a 50+1%. In fact, the first respondent will obtain 49.37%, and the first petitioner would have 49.10%. My lords, for the 1,826 polling stations, totaling 791,423 votes, we would like the court to annul the votes because they are illegal. The law requires that every voter shall go through a process of biometric verification. This means that the fingerprints of the voter, which were taken during the registration period, have to be authenticated at the time of voting. My lords, the evidence is on the face of the pink sheet. What we did was to aggregate for each polling station where voting without biometric verification took place. We aggregated all the numbers in section 63, C3. And my lords, if I may refer to my tables, we have a total of 535,723 people who were voted without biometric verification in the polling stations under contention.
Dr. Bawumia's testimony was interrupted by a series of objections. The most controversial one was challenging his attempt to introduce the subject of annulment of some election results in his evidence. All the lawyers of the respondents were united in the attempt to shoot that down. Listen.
Admissible. Because, in fact, when the petitioners were ordered to provide particulars of the affected polling stations, they managed to provide only 22. My understanding, therefore, and in fact the court ordered that they should restrict the evidence to 22 polling stations.
In the pleadings, it was alleged that there were 28 such non-existent polling stations. But in the sitting we had on the second of April, Mr. Addison admitted that they could only put forward 22, and that was recorded, and our request for further and better particulars was taken to have lapsed as regards the shortfall of 6, and this is on record, my lord.
It was counsel for the petitioners who said in open court that he was going to abide by the number of polling stations in respect of which further and better particulars had been provided. Now, if there is going to be evidence given about more than that, then we would respectfully require that further and better particulars should be provided in respect of whatever additional.
My lord, the original allegation of the petitioners were that there were 28 locations. Upon the order that we provide further and better particulars, we provided particulars in respect of 23. My lord, I said so because there was one volume in which there were 22 locations.
Yes, and the court order was actually based upon what you admitted.
No, but we have supplied information for the 23. It was also with them. We had supplied information on the 23.
But you should have been sure that you have supplied the information on 23 instead of the 22 that you admitted. So you can't go back on your word.
Well, my lord, we will not belabor it, except that the 23 is also with them. We have provided evidence for 23, but we will not belabor it. If it's 22, we will go on with 22.
Yes, and then we move on.
So the objections you just heard relates to some 23 polling stations that the petitioners claim they were not part of the original list given to them during elections by the Electoral Commission. Well, they attempted to lead evidence as regards to those 23 polling stations. However, the respondents raised an objection challenging that because they claim that the petitioners had only brought, as far as the affidavits were concerned, substance relating to only 22 polling stations. That was considered by the panel of judges, and eventually they were forced to limit themselves to 22 polling stations. But there was a more substantive objection that was at the heart of the presentation today. And I've been joined by my colleague who was in court today, Anu Sabute, as far as that particular substantive objection is concerned. And it had to do, Annie, with this attempt by Dr. Bawumia to introduce the subject of annulment of some results in some of these polling stations into his testimony. And the objection essentially from the respondents were that, hey, you didn't introduce this in your affidavits earlier. You didn't depose to it, and therefore you cannot talk about it here. The judges ruled on this.
Precisely. So in the rule, there was a bit of controversy. So when the objections came, they had to sort of take a short break and come back. So when they came back, they objected to they dismissed the objection being raised by the first, second, and the third respondent. And their ruling was that, this is an evidence that is being given, and therefore they can necessarily cross-examine him on when it comes to cross-examination, which is going to take place, we hope, tomorrow. So, they believe that it is not testifying to fact, but it's just giving an evidence. So they have opportunity when they take their turn to cross-examine him on the information that he's provided.
And that, for me, if you listen to the thing, and from Dr. Bawumia and his lawyers, indeed, was at the heart of what they were trying to do here, because they were alleging in that particular piece of evidence that there were some of these polling stations that, indeed, Afro-Agyan had indicated that if they were overvoting, the entire votes there will have to be annulled. And he was trying to then introduce that, and then quickly the objections came in. Precisely.
And he wanted to go ahead and cite two instances.
Exactly.
Which didn't happen when Kwashi Aidan, who is representing the Electoral Commission, stood up to object to that before Tony Lita and Chaji Gata came up in support. And you recall that Tony Lita's point was that, it appears they're kind of being sneaked in or kind of being ambushed by that statement. But it's going to be interesting tomorrow when, Tony Lita takes his seat to turn to, cross-examine Dr. Bawumia.
And thank you very much, Andy. And that particular point, indeed, Dr. Bawumia went on and introduced the specific examples he wanted to introduce to back his claim of overvoting in some polling stations. We can now speak to a member of the NDC's legal team, Nana Atodadzi. He's just joined us on the telephone line right now. Thank you, sir, for your time. I'm sure you were in court when the judges returned with that decision to overrule your objection. Some say that is fundamental. Is that fatal to your case in any way? Hello, sir. Okay, we don't seem to have him on the line. When we get him, we'll put those questions to him. We're also expecting to be speaking to the spokesperson for the NPP's own legal team, Mr. Boabia Sama, who will also be joining us here on Top Story. Tomorrow, the testimony will continue. Today, Dr. Boabia did not finish his testimony in chief. Tomorrow, it will continue. And we're expecting also tomorrow that Nana Addo-Dankwa Akufo-Addo indeed will also come before the judges and be led in evidence. Then, obviously, the key thing most people are looking forward to is the issue of the cross-examination. And we've heard from some of the lawyers that they're expecting a pretty rigorous session when it comes to the cross-examination. That is what most people are looking forward to, and hopefully we'll have that tomorrow. But we can now speak to Boabia Sama, who's just joined us on the telephone line. He's the spokesperson for the NPP legal team. Thank you very much, Mr. Samoa. It was anticipated. Most people were waiting for the day when Dr. Bawumia, Nana Addo-Dankwa Akufo-Addo, Jacob Echebe-Lamptey will enter the witness box and give their evidence. Today, Dr. Bawumia got his turn. Did it run its course? Did it go the way you anticipated?
Thank you very much, Evans, and good news to your viewers and listeners. Clearly, I was overwhelmed. The evidence is overwhelming, literally. The way it has been carefully gone through and passed, and the figures sorted out to reflect the different categories where there were clear violations, omissions by the Electoral Commission, more practices and irregularities. And all of these have been parceled into numbers that obviously appear to have had an impact on the final result. I believe that Dr. Bawumia has done a yeoman's job today.
Tomorrow he will continue his submissions, his testimony in chief. The anticipation of the public is, are we going to have Nana Addo-Dankwa also in the box tomorrow?
Let us get to tomorrow and see how the examination in chief of Dr. Bawumia goes. We can't predict how the timing runs. As the court said, we will start at 10, probably have a quick lunch break at 12. And then come back and continue till about 4. And so let's see how it goes. Okay. Because the cross-examination will be done before any other witness gets into the box.
I want you to stay on the line briefly for me, because I'll return and ask you about this objection that, started this off and started the controversy. We had a ruling on that, but I've been joined by your colleague from the other side, Nana Atodadzi, who is also a member of the NDC legal team. Nana, thank you very much for your time here on Top Story. Let me ask about that objection that you raised and was subsequently overruled by the panel of Supreme Court judges. Is that fatal in any way to your case?
No, not in the least. Thank you very much. Basically, this is a court of record, which means that the court moves on the basis of pleadings, statements from either side shared between the parties. Whatever you see must have been written somewhere, either in an affidavit or pleadings or whatnot. Now, basically, the objection from our side was that the allegations of annulment of some specific polling stations, which was then being thrown forward by Dr. Bawumia, had not been stated in the substantive pleadings, you see. So the pleadings, that's what we go by. And that's why there was a very strong objection from all sides. However, the court came back and said that, even though it's not in the pleadings, a bigger issue of overvoting had been indicated, that the general rubric, that they'll be talking about overvoting. So if they are coming, as it were, to be talking about some specific instances of it, they should be allowed. And that in any case, you have a chance to cross-examine to expose the falsity or otherwise of their statements. So it's not fatal at all. He will take the stand, and we take him on.
Mr. Bawumia-Asamoah, that piece of evidence is fundamental to your case, isn't it?
I'm trying to break down what I've just heard, but my understanding of it was that the is saying that there were instances of overvoting, and that the way the Electoral Commission had determined to deal with overvoting is to annul any polling station where there is overvoting. And when you annul, not to add the figures to the final tally. That is the meaning of that intent, annulling the polling station results. Now, you are looking for overvoting in several hundreds, over 700,000, almost 900,000 have been discovered through overvoting. And then the petitioner was stressing by an example that indeed the petitioner had not only threatened to annul, but actually followed up and annulled some polling stations during the election itself. And therefore, the petitioner was bound by law to annul the rest as had been found by the petitioner. So in support of the petitioner's prayer to the court to annul polling stations where there had been overvoting, he was citing as an example the Electoral Commission, the second respondent's own actions in respect of annulling a polling station. And that was the example he was bringing in. And that is why the court said, what's wrong with that? Because if the man has stated in his pleadings that there was overvoting, and elsewhere in his pleadings he has stated that he will ask the court to annul any votes that came in by way of violations, and these overvoting were violations, then it follows that in evidence he is at liberty to give an example of that. I thought that objection was a bit of a nitpicking expedition, really.
Okay, Mr. Bawumia-Asamoah, thank you very much. My final question to you, Nana Dadzie, what's your expectation tomorrow?
No, Ivan, sorry. Before I just conclude, let me just say that I think there's been a mix. You see, there's a mix of law and fact. You understand? Dr. Bawumia cannot speak law. You saw the judges indicating that he should restrict himself to facts. He can only testify to facts. The conclusion, whether the votes should be annulled or not annulled, rests with the judges. So anyone who will say that he has, Dr. Bawumia has said so it must be a fact, or it must be the conclusion, is getting the things absolutely bigs up. Everything that Dr. Bawumia has said today, it's not new to anybody.
Okay.
These are the things that he filed in his pleadings or in his affidavit. You see, these are, for now, they are still allegations. He's testifying to them. When we have the opportunity of cross-examining him, to establish the truth or otherwise of those allegations, then we'll be coming close to establishing the veracity. Is it your expectation?
Is it your expectation that you get that chance tomorrow to cross-examine him?
Oh well, we are dearly waiting for it. I mean, we're gunning for it. There are quite a number of interesting points which he canvassed. Very, very, very debatable, and I believe that our team is absolutely ready to show that this is not a case that should ever have seen the court.
Thank you very much, Nana Dadzie. He's a member of the NDC legal team. Earlier, had Mr. Bawumia-Asamoah, who's also the spokesperson for the NPP legal team. You want to join me on Newsnight because we've not heard the last of this. There are several angles to this that's happened in court today. If you missed it, join us because we'll synthesize it for you. All the angles that Bawumia touched on, the 4 key areas, we'll be examining the evidence to back these allegations on Newsnight. My name is Evans Mensah.